Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm East Forest. Thank you for joining me. This week, or this episode, is going to be a bit of a commentary, a bit of a rant, but I am going to leave you with a guided meditation. So if you'd like to jump ahead to that guided meditation, you'll see there in the show notes, I'll put the time code of when that is if you just want to jump ahead. The meditation you'll hear is called In Between is Home, and it actually is from the Patreon. Back in late July of 2023, it looks like I have a date on it, is when that particular meditation was created. Just want to say thank you to everyone on that Patreon because that's why it exists. You know, once a month, I'm doing with them what we call the council. So we get together and witness one another and share sort of what we're scouting out there in the world and our hearts. And then I do a live guided meditation to East Forest music. And then that's what it is. So I'm actually working on putting together an album of meditations against the Lovingly music from select tracks from the Lovingly album. And so I was going through them. And so that's what is at the end of this as a way of self-resourcing, which is incredibly important, of course, anytime, but particularly now. Apologies, my voice is a little raw today. I don't know why. I'm currently out here. Just came out. It's late April when I'm recording this to my land and property out in southern Utah. And I acquired this, I should say purchased, whatever, steward this land out. It's off-grid. And I've been working on building it up so that I have a place to be out here. It's been a ton of work, but it's incredibly nourishing. And it's very dry out here, so I think I'm just dry and it's affecting my voice. But believe me, it's me. Trust me, it's me. This is not an AI recreation. And many things have been on my mind, particularly what is going on with the Trump administration and sort of socially. And then I kind of wrap that up, what's going on in our AI landscape and what's coming towards us. And then reflecting that just from my own perspective of where I have been in my heart and in my energy and in my thoughts really since the top of the year. And, you know, I've for 17 years, I've been doing this East Forest project. And so back in 2008 when it began, I remember, at least for myself, it's probably just my own self-referential perspective, but things felt quite a bit more innocent and in some ways more simplistic, particularly in the wellness space. You know, it was kind of like, you know, you'd seen something, or people use phrases like you'd woken up, or you were out of the dream, or whatever it was, or you weren't in a way. And it's when you were, it's like, okay, then it's just about bringing everyone into their hearts and compassion and, like, you know, the oneness and waking up to that. And it was in that way, that was very simplistic. I have always had a real trust about when we do inner work, that if it's real and we have the right sort of conditions around it, or witnesses and support, that it can naturally lead towards compassion and togetherness. And really, you know, if you realize all is one, truly, then you recognize that anything you do for others, you're doing for yourself, you're doing for the one, and there's only one game in town in that sense. But, of course, delusion is a real thing, and I've tried to speak about this over the years, and it's important to have community and support and that witness, so that when you are in delusion, I mean, by definition, you don't know, or maybe you do somewhere deep down, that someone can say to you, hey, I think you're losing your way here. You're getting a little, like, wrapped up in your own shit. And you can get back on track. And I think that's part of the journey too. But here we are, fast forwarding to today, and everything's gotten so wrapped up in different things, not to mention everything's moving so quickly. Even in the wellness, quote unquote, movement, psychedelic movement itself, we have had some bifurcations and cleavings of this formerly simplistic tribe, shall we say. Things like the Maha movement, RFK Jr., and so forth, you know, and anything from Russell Brands to how even like the Joe Rogans to just the way things like used to be one way and now they're a different way, and we're not always sure now, in a sense, if we're all on the same page in sometimes that shared in that shared process of awakening. And in some ways, it reminds me of religions, in a sense, where people start to become more tribal, and it's like our way is the way, and we start to, it's like where the map becomes the territory, or whatever the metaphor is, and you start to wonder, like, well, what am I supporting by, participating in X, Y, Z? And the point is, it gets more complicated. And then another layer on top of that is everything that's going on today in our country, and it's moving so quickly since this new regime, might be the best word for it, has come into office. The Trump administration, of course, and I think I'm assuming everyone out there is quite well aware of all the different things that have been going on. I don't need to. There's many great resources and commentary out there. I don't need to rehash it here in a more, I wouldn't do as good a job. But in that way, so many things have been frustrating and shocking and terrible and sort of blind dismantling and frankly, some of it confusing. Anything from what we're doing in Ukraine and changing the geopolitical order. It's hard to put certain ideology on top of it to excuse it, to be like, well, that's just, say, the neoconservative perspective. And it's getting to points where, like, there's got to be other, beyond even sheer stupidity, ulterior motives with some of these aspects, particularly that one. That is incensed to me. I'm someone who's, by the way, again, if you want to jump ahead of the meditation, please do. And I'm searching through these thoughts for myself as much as anything. And what I'm getting to is that I think it's important that we share our voices now. And it's not something that I've always done in the past around political, shall we say, endeavors. I've always wanted to be in the meta narratives. That's where I'm very comfortable. I also feel like that's where it's like my sweet spot or talents rise. That's what music is. It is a meta narrative in a sense. It swims in metaphor. It is the language of the non-dual. It is a language of emotion. And I think that is a very important space and powerful space. It's what art is. But there are things happening now that if I don't use words, like distill it down or even try, I feel like I'm doing some kind of disservice, or at least that's a certain intuition at this moment. So that's why I'm trying to just say some things against what is happening. I think we all need to start saying some things, even if we don't quite know what to say or we're afraid. So I want to say some things. And again, it's just a rant, but it feels important to me this morning as I'm sitting here looking out this landscape on the mountain. The Ukraine stuff made me very upset. I even went to graduate school in Moscow in Russia. I got an MFA degree through part of it was through the Moscow Art Theater, and I feel like I have some familiarity with sort of Eastern Europe in that way. I've spent a little time in Bulgaria. I had an exchange student from Ukraine when I was in high school. And of course, my heart goes out to the Ukrainians. It's just outrageous. I just imagine what would it be like if like another country was invading, and would I pick up arms if I had to? It feels very existential, and that makes me incensed. It makes me crazy to think about like this stupid meme coin stuff that Trump's family has started to enrich themselves. And like there's so much other things going on that a lot of us, we've just moved on, or there's absolutely no checks on this. The SEC is completely inept. There's no Justice Department investigations. They're just making hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, let alone wanting to start a Bitcoin reserve with our tax dollars so that they can get rich. So the whole point of Bitcoin really is for secret payments. So if you have something like that as a strategic reserve, quote unquote, then anyone, any government, any person can basically bribe you and pay you and enrich you, and there's no way to track it. That, to me, was completely outrageous that's going on. We could go on and on of all the different things happening, like firing the JAG officers in the Pentagon, just the basic dismantling of law and taking apart intentionally institutions seemingly for the sake of preparing for something in the future, but also, I guess, cravenness of enjoying seeing things like, look at my power, look at me take this. I don't know. It's crazy to me because it's bad policy. Like it's not helping your own constituents, the MAGA faithful. It's like, is any of that, there's no way to argue that any of that is like MAGA to me. But when we get to what's been happening in the last couple weeks of the deportations and then the quote unquote disappearing of people right off the streets with no due process, sharing no evidence. It's actually sharing doctored evidence. I mean, obviously doctored evidence that's very provable, quote unquote evidence. This is really terrible. We were crossing lines we kind of assumed and knew that we'd be crossing. It's just a matter of when, and here we are. And then these comments about, wanting to do this now with American citizens. It's already completely an emergency that you're taking people who shouldn't be removed from anywhere, let alone that you're sending them to a place where you're claiming they're gone forever. Essentially a kind of death sentence. This is wrong. I mean, it's beyond wrong. And I don't know a lot else what to do but, to say that and say that I can't just like continue on my way and not give voice to that. And it may feel like, I understand that a lot of us are feeling, hey, I don't know what's the point of saying anything, or what's the point of protesting, or I'm afraid to, because in a sense, I sense that in the future, maybe they're setting things up to use this old Insurrection Act. I think it's from 1807. I mean, give me a break. So that they can have essentially martial law. They can have the military on the streets, or suspend law, which is in some ways already happening because we're not following the law or the Constitution here. If you don't have any due process, I mean, even people who went to Guantanamo with the Bush administration had forms of due process and lawyers and Geneva Conventions. And I mean, there's plenty of criticism and argument of how that went down. But I'm just saying, like, all of that gone. And very intentionally so. There's, whoever is, whether it's Stephen Miller or whoever's in the Trump administration who is advising or coming up with these ideas, is very deliberately coming up with a method to send them to a place like El Salvador to just get out of completely the law, the courts. I personally don't think they're doing that, but of course I'm no constitutional lawyer or expert, but it's outrageous. But if we're moving towards somewhere where it will become like harder and harder to speak, I think it's important that we speak now. There was a quote that I found, powerful. I think I heard it on Ezra Klein. I put it on my own Instagram, and I'll read it now. It's from Martin Niemöllers, written just after the Holocaust, argued against apathy and for the moral connectedness of all people. He said, "First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out, because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." I mean, it does feel in this creep that's been very fast that we're moving towards, it just keeps increasing. It keeps being and edging towards all these different aspects of our institutions, our rule of law, and us as a people. And certainly, this goes way back to, remember, like birtherism with Obama, and then the Muslim ban, or certain countries where if you're Muslim, it's very blatant. I mean, or even back to the Central Park Five, I think it was called back. I mean, I used to live in New York. I remember Trump. I mean, he was just like a piece of shit real estate tabloid guy who's only cared about one thing, and that was himself and celebrity, really. Anyway, to stay on topic, it may feel like protests, and I can understand how it's like, well, look, protests, they're not going to change any of his mind. It's like, but we need to at least band together and share voices in different ways, even in conversations with each other. I read this great quote from Starhawk. This was in Daniel Pinchbeck's Substack, and I'll read it to you now. Starhawk says, protests may not cause Trump to tremble in his boots, but they are a necessary precondition for change to happen. They're like the compost you spread to amend the soil so something can grow. Without them, without the visual representation that we stand firmly against these acts of cruelty and lawlessness, there is little incentive for our elected representatives to take stronger actions. I mean, it's true. It's true. Like, we have to start somewhere. And Rada was telling me that she was reading a book about, I don't know if it's about revolution or fascism, but that historically, the amount of people that need to rise up, it's something like 3% or 4%. It's like that is the yeast in the bread that makes it rise. And that's enough. And, that's a lot of people. I think I mentioned that on a Instagram Live or something the other day, and someone did the math. They're like, that's 270 million people of the whole earth. It's a lot of people, but I'm just saying proportionally, not a lot. And so, there, and wouldn't you rather be on that side to look back? And I know in your hearts, most likely if you're a listener of this podcast and a listener of the music and in our community, you're someone who knows that something more beautiful is possible. You know in your heart that we're edging towards that. That is a natural progression of what it means to be a human being. But we can lose our way. We can be in delusion. Just as in some ways, parts of our shadow, our society is in delusion now. And we need to be that witness to one another to say, I don't want this. I don't believe in this. My own president, quote unquote, is not ruling or giving authority against the Constitution that we apparently agree under or that we are citizens under. Therefore, there's not an authority over us. We need to just at least raise our voices and say certain actions, like taking people and sending them to another country and saying nothing I can do about it, and they have no due process. That this is obviously wrong. Obviously wrong. We need to be the witness to one another and the support to one another. Because the waters are being tested. They're being far from tested at this point. And things are coming for us in the future. I've always said, for 17 years, I've been saying that inner fortitude matters, because that inner resourcing, so that we can understand and be comfortable and strengthen that muscle in a sense of where is that candle flame within of truth and love and compassion, so that when the ground shakes or the fires are burning hot around us, we can stand. We know where our feet are. We know what that feels like. That is what practice is for. That is what inner resourcing is for. Hopefully that's what psychedelic journeys are for, so that we can see clearly while being a human being. And I always said I think things are going to get harder in the future, and then things come like COVID, and I've said I think there's going to be, my intuition is even more difficult situations as we move forward as a people. And here we are. And I can tell you now, I think it's going to get even more challenging and difficult, and will continue in that way. Not just politically, but also this tidal wave of what's coming towards us environmentally and through AI and many other peak crises. But just AI alone, I mean, the disruption that it will cause. The folks that I talk to feel very sanguine about this, I feel, are just frankly naive. And I know it may seem right now, just to speak to it briefly, that you use AI in ways that sometimes maybe some of you think it's, wow, that's really impressive or amazing, but a lot of it can be quite clunky. Like, we've all had the experience of talking to a terrible AI chatbot or whatever it is, just a bad result from ChatGPT. but it's exponentially improving. Believe me, the little even I know about it's coming fast. Like I feel this tidal wave coming towards us, and it's a concrescence of all these different crises and technologies and change. But it's sort of just like Terence McKenna's Time Wave Zero, this exponential rise of information, as he might have called it, novelty, of change. What is that concrescence that is moving towards? But as you zoom into it more and more and more, you're just, here we are on the line, like we're on spaceship Earth, and it seems like everything's still, but we're moving through space, spiraling around the sun moving through, through the galactic arm spiraling, the galaxy itself moving. I mean, we're throttling through space and time. It's just a matter of perspective. And I'll be honest, like since after my New York show around February 14th, I got back February 15th, I still feel this feeling of being like punched in the face, not by the show, by all these things we're talking about. And where oftentimes when I think about doing something creative or really many things, there's another voice in me, a sad, pained voice that's sort of like, what's the point? Because you're sensing the future. You're seeing that tidal wave in the distance coming towards us, the tsunami. And it's not sure how to prepare or act or react to it. How do we, what is meaningful for that? But what I can say is there are aspects of those waves and waters that are rising right now. And I can say I don't really have the luxury, I don't feel, not to say something, even if I don't know quite what to say. Other than that, I feel it. I feel something. I see on the surface these things going on. I don't like it. I don't believe in it. I don't want it. It's just not the future I want. And I don't even want... It spills over into this podcast. It spills over into social media for me and my recordings. I mean, most things that I'm doing these days, I'm either not doing them as much, or I feel a friction because of the backdrop it's against, the acuteness of what is happening. Again, remember, it used to feel like things were always happening. And so 15, 17 years ago, and we're like, yeah, but, the meta-narrative felt like it was a slower churn of the water. Like, we can do that, and it's important. And it is important, don't get me wrong. But it's sort of like the fire is starting to burn around us. You got to put out the fire, like your house is burning down. You got to do that first. And so I'm starting to, it's just the fire is getting hotter and hotter around us, and it's cooking us and it's burning us. And so please help me know what to do. And let's be together in this to just share and raise our voices in these conversations. I'm trying to do that with friends too, even when it's scary, especially down here in southern Utah, right? Like, this is not like I'm in Portland, Oregon anymore, or even central Boise, Idaho, where it feels like, hey, we're all on the same page. But it's like, in some ways, some of these things going on are beyond politics. And I feel like if I really just, there's lots of common ground. I was hanging out with a neighbor of mine yesterday going on a walk. And, there's lots that we don't have in common, I'm sure, politically. But I still felt the need to bring up, certain levels of this because I want to feel like, hey, we have shared ground here. And that's important. So that's what I'm saying to you. Today is a day of protest. They've been happening almost every weekend. Today that I'm recording this is also Bicycle Day. It's a recognition of Albert Hoffman's first psychedelic trip with his bicycle incidental. And of course, plant medicine use has been going back for millennia. But even just for us to honor and recognize what psychedelics and that place and the role that can play for us now. And hopefully it can be one of connection so that we can be braver souls in this world. And we can walk forward and really speak from the heart and not just be, reacted, wounded healers, so to speak, but to hopefully be speaking from that place of truth and allow us to get in touch so that we can bring it into our humanness and bring it into our daily life. Remember, the point is to be human, right? The point of our incarnation is to go through this human journey and to feel and to go through the muck and the challenges. And so if we're going through all these challenges together, and if you took on the lens that you chose this incarnation, then you're a brave soul, and lean in. Lean in. Ask for support, whether it's from the earth, from your ancestors, from your friends, from a book club, from whatever. Find from, if you go to these protests, maybe you'll meet some folks. But resource. I need to resource. And I personally have been feeling like social media has not been a place, it's never been a place that I've particularly felt very natural for me. And I've railed against it for many, many years, that I thought it's a big part of the problem of our disconnection as a people. And maybe on a separate podcast, and I've talked about it before, but we can go into, if you look back at when the iPhone really took off around 2012, interesting there, wink, wink, 2012, time wave zero. Since then, that's when things really started to kick off with high-speed internet on our phones and social media. And I think the way we consume information, not just the fragmented nature and the shortened attention spans, but the sort of tribalism that creates, and how we're moving into that with AI, where there's not even a shared truth anymore about content, or AI-created peak content and all this kind of stuff. It's a big, big part of how we are where we are now. It's part of it, but a big part of it. I really do believe that. And so I'm not even sure I want to participate in that anymore. And so I've been thinking a lot and having a lot of discussions about what it would mean if I went dark on social media. And I would have done it. I would never be on social media if I didn't. But, it's one of the only ways we can let you know about shows, for instance. And it's just been like an advertising platform that's frankly been almost unavoidable. But it's just getting to a point where, like, what's the point of sharing certain things when the house is burning in that way? And you could say, I also don't want to add to a reactive fire. Just my intuition is that I need to take a break from that, because I feel like we need to be finding each other in different spaces. And what those spaces are, of course, in-person spaces are amazing. I'm still working through the details of that. So that's just something that I've been thinking about. And even in this podcast space, it's difficult for me to have conversations that maybe aren't about the immediacy and the emergency, which in some ways I always feel they've been related to that. But I also don't want to just talk about things I'm not an expert in, even though I'm somewhat of a generalist. And I also don't want to just, I'm sure you guys want a break. And that, I'm sure one of the reasons you drop into the music and these conversations and these spaces is to resource and not talk and hear about it. So you aren't even listening if that's the case. But I don't know. Times are strange, my friends, and it's going to be a lot of everything for the time being, and we got to experiment and explore. And thank you for being with me on this journey together as I do that in different modalities. So the live space will continue. The retreats are continuing. I hope to be with more recorded music. I sure hope so. I got to find the resourcing there. I hope the AI space doesn't destroy that. The podcast, I'm still trying to figure out what to do there. The Patreon is most definitely continuing. I'm thinking about whether Substack should be a part of that. It's just, again, about what is meeting this moment, us being nimble, us being flexible, us being reactive in a very smart way. And so with that, thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing your voice. And we're going to dive into this meditation at the 30-minute mark of my ramblings. And I will be doing some touring, I hope, in the fall. There are some dates like the Ram Dass retreat in August and some other things happening in between then. But get on the mailing list And thanks for all the support for Music for Mushrooms, the movie. We're continuing to try to get that out there. And I love you. And I'm grateful for your support and for our community. And keep walking, friends. Peace and love. Finding ourselves in the here and now just by taking a few breaths in and out. Gently. At your pace. What are you holding on to in your body that maybe you could relax a bit? Like the air in your lungs as you breathe in, just gently like a cloud moves through your extremities, your feet, your toes, up through your chest, down through your shoulders, into your hands and your fingertips. Almost like as you breathe, you are a cloud. You feel that lightness. Dropping any little bits of rain that you're holding on to, any heaviness, any tension releases. Just floating, just being. All is welcome. In this space, we deepen our listening. The subtlety of it is so natural. It's not additive. We simply take things away, and the richness of this presence is available to us. That's right, you create the invitation to be spoken to. It's like it's polite, it's an opening is the invitation. An attitude of being. What if you're always in between? Always in that spaciousness. Notice as you breathe in and out. Notice the pause in between each. If you like, you can count 4 in and hold for 4. And then 4 out and hold again. Very good. And here we are together. Edge walking on something with no edge. It's a loosening. It's a loosening. It's natural. I want you just to receive in this opening, in this loosening, there's a tenderness. That's you, that's all of us. And it needs to be sung to. Whispered to be sat with. Very good. gentle smile just in the corners of your mouth. A gentle nod of knowing. Like a mudra for your body to say yes. 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 Breathing into your heart, allowing a bit more time to rest into this space. The space in between is one of boundless creation. It's the plenum of who we are. It's a place of safety, of home. Let this knowing be remembered. What is? Maybe take a few more breaths that expand a little larger in your body. Just feel the edges of your being in the room. And we'll close this meditation